That is the documentary, Dangerous Highway. We just brought to you and detailing exactly how dangerous the George Walker Bush Motorway, or the N1 highway as it's known, is to pedestrians and motorists entirely. I've been joined in studio by the Executive Director of the National Road Safety Commission, Engineer May Obri-Yaboah. The Honorable Kwame Ogbojao is a ranking member of the Roads and Highways Committee of Parliament, and we're going to have a discussion on what we've been watching so far. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and good evening to you. Let me start off with you, Honorable. I mean, this is not the first time we're having a conversation about the N1 highway and what's happening there. Now, in 2015, I recall that Honorable Yunus Afuseni, who was the Minister of Roads and Highways at the time, said that because the reason why you could not construct the footbridges was because of the conditions in the IMF bailout. What is the situation with the construction of the footbridges now? You're on the committee in Parliament.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to your cherished viewers. First of all, this documentary is it's a very good thing, but very sad knowing the numbers over the period of 6 years. Indeed, I must congratulate my colleague, the Member of Parliament, Honorable, who also you interviewed.
Patrick Warman.
Yes, he's consistently, I remember, he's asked questions in Parliament. He's been an advocate for this to be done. Let's go back, take some steps back. Indeed, this road was funded. I think it was part of one of the Millennium Compact. I don't think the Americans designed a road and came down here and imposed it on us. The design was done by Ghanaians, and the question we should ask first is, which kind of the system did they go through in terms of the traffic study, the human traffic relationships that informed what should happen in that particular stretch, where is a Abeka section where...
Well, yeah, I mean, because the question has been that a highway with urban settlements on both sides of the road, what kind of engineering considerations went through the decision to construct that road, still leaving the urban settlements knowing that it's a highway and the people would have to be crossing the road? Madam Obri-Yaboah.
Thank you and good evening to viewers. The N1 highway, like you rightly said, by the name says it's a highway, but both sides of it is urbanized. Right from Apenkwa, I mean that section,
absolutely,
to Malam Junction.
I mean,
and so
from Tetakwashi,
because
yes, there are that's commercial buildings and hotels alongside
both sides. So one would have thought that even if we wanted to have a highway through the urban areas, then we have to consider pedestrians so that we separate grades where pedestrians will pass and then where the vehicle traffic also would be. Because once they are on the same level, we expect people to die. So for me, the construction... You
expect people to die?
Yes, if you have made it such that they are on the same level. You have not solved any problem.
So is that to say that we didn't have engaged enough with Roads and Highways or the Ghana Highway Authority? I must say that we extended an invitation to the Ghana Highway Authority and the Roads and Highways Ministry. They say they are engaged in equally important activities. They couldn't be here. But the point is it that this road was constructed without enough engagement? Because you are with the National Road Safety Commission. If what you're telling myself and my viewers and people are listening to us right now is anything to go by, then it's a clear concern.
Yes, it
is. We put a highway and we have urban centers.
And we have not made enough provision to separate the pedestrians from the vehicle traffic. We were, at one point, when doing construction, we talked about it, and at one point we came in with some of this auditing. But I must be frank, some of the things that we said or we proposed never came to pass. It was not considered.
You made proposals while the road was being constructed?
Yeah, it was not considered.
And it was not considered?
Yes.
Who did you make the proposals
to? The Ghana Highway Authority, and they were the consultants to that project.
Look, this is a design defect. If this thing was designed properly, and indeed there are many cities that have got highways running in the middle of them, and that doesn't necessarily result into this. Where was the interventions that was supposed to separate the pedestrian from the vehicles appropriately? And you can tell some of the pedestrians were trying to go through places that is convenient for them.
Absolutely.
And that tells you that where we place the bridges are different from where the people actually use. But it's too late now, where we can still do the overpasses, but with ramps.
Well, with ramps, I'm going to go onto the telephone now. DSP Alexander Obeng is a director in charge of education, research and training at the Motor Traffic and Transport Department of Ghana Police Service. DSP, thank you very much for your time. Good evening to you. One leg of this problem is the indiscipline. And that indiscipline, you could partly not blame pedestrians because there are no footbridges on this highway, and the places where the footbridges are, it's not convenient. What have you done about this situation, DSP?
Thank you, Alfred, and Auntie May and the co-panelists. I think it is sad that a road that is designed to ensure that our development is fast-tracked is become an evil at the same time, and it's unfortunate. And I think the diagnoses are clear that the auditing that was done right after the opening have to be implemented in order to introduce more physical safe countermeasures, including the additional footbridges that are required, so that sort of steel bridges among others at other locations in order to facilitate this crossing of this wide urban Kume highway road. And I think that stakeholders have done what they have to do. At a certain point, it's about funding. And we think that if there is any time to ensure that physical expenditure are introduced in order to ensure that those who are willing, too vulnerable and capable of offending and therefore expose themselves to danger are prevented. And you can only do that by the suggestions that the panelists are giving. And I think that's the way for it. If you want to rely on physical police deployment, of which we do, to ensure that we ameliorate this, I think we will not achieve much because it's a very long stretch.
Absolutely.
And the medians are left
is...
and people are jaywalking and doing all manner of things that are exposing them to. I think that if the road is highway, it should be made highway, and those that are left for pedestrians to use is urbanized, so that people can safely cross the road using the footbridges, which has to be more than we have now.
DSP Obeng, thank you very much. Now let me come back in studio. Engineer May Obrey Yeboah is still with us. Now I'm a bit worried. I mean, what kind of recommendations did you make at the time of the construction of this highway, which could have probably prevented these over 300 lives we've lost on the highway?
You know,
from dying.
Construction had gone far, but we still thought that some contribution to it could help. One major one, which you have just said, is the where the footbridges have been placed.
So when they were citing the footbridges, what did they take into consideration? Well,
normally you have to do a count of pedestrian crossings at certain points, and you have to consider where pedestrians use most. I don't know how this one was done. You don't know how? Yes, because we were not part of it. As a major stakeholder, we were not part of it. Road and highways in this country, being the National Road Safety Commission, we were not part. You were not part of this whole construction of the N1 highway. Yes, from the beginning, we were not part of it. It was later when we made, we started talking about it, that we needed to be part of this, because what was happening, we could see from afar that something would definitely will come out of it where people are going to die. So we came in the latter part of it. and a lot of them, the bridges had already been done. No ramps have been provided for the disabled or the fiscally challenged. And some of this, we have said it over and over and over again. But we are always promised that they'll be doing it.
And you see, Honorable, I asked you a question early on. You did not answer me. In 2015, I asked this question and posed it to the Honorable Enos of Sin, who was the Minister of Roads and Highways at the time. He said you had entered into an IMF bailout, and because of the conditions in that bailout, you couldn't award a contract to construct the other footbridges on the highway. What is the status of those footbridges that have to be constructed now? You are a member of the Roads and Highways Committee.
Yes, that's why I started out by saying that there was a design defect. Was this design made such that these things would have been taken care of? I doubt if that was part of it. Fast forward, if there was a remedial action to be taken to provide these things, then it became an issue of money. But looking at the numbers, I think this should be prioritized. Because
how many times have you talked about this at your committee sittings, as a member of the committee?
Well, it did not come as an issue per se to the committee, but at the plenary, we have discussed this issue. And not only this, there are other sections of other roads in the country that experience, sadly, this situation. You know, by our nature, we build highways.
We're going to go to all the other roads, but I'm concerned about this. So the problem we are confronted with now, what have you done about this? Well, what's the status of this?
Yes,
of the other footbridges that are to be constructed?
I remember one of the times that Honorable Boama read a statement. It was actually a directive from Speaker that this statement should be filed against the minister, that action should be taken. But you see, the problem is when you direct this statement to the minister, he now needs to go and do the necessary studies and budget it. And that is where the problem is. But I am saying that we have had enough talking. Can we have a situation where we take an urgent action to get this done? And that action should go back and do the study so that wherever we put these pedestrian footbridges actually are effective. That is where the people use. And like she said, when we do these studies, let's do an audit to ensure that the various stakeholders that can have the expertise to determine whether it will work are on board, so that we don't go and put up footbridges that are abandoned or are ignored and people are trying to cross at the wrong sides.
Sad situation. Madam Mewbri, thank you very much for this, and we're grateful that you made the time to join us.
I lost an uncle on that stretch.
Absolutely.
At La Paz.
It's sad. It's sad. Natalie, you've been assessing what's been happening on social media.
Yes, certainly, Alfred. It's an incredibly disappointing situation to see the lives that have been lost on this stretch. We have comments coming in. We have comments coming in through our hashtag Killer Roads on our social media pages. Visit our Twitter as well as our Facebook to follow up on these comments. And it's a very comprehensive documentary out there that goes to solve this problem.
So the hashtag continues Killer Roads. And you can get the full documentary on 3news.com as well. Thank you very much for staying with us tonight here on News 360. Engineer Mewbri Yeboah, who is Executive Director of the National Road Safety Commission, Honorable Kwame Akpoja, is a ranking member of the Roads and Highways Committee, and DSP Alexander Dombe, who joined us on the telephone. My name is Alfred Akansi.
And I'm Natalie Fort. Like Alfred said, visit our website, 3news.com, for more on this. We've got more news for you on News at 10. We'll bring you more on this particular documentary. So stay with us here on TV3. Thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful evening.